Today, we are talking about AI, a field surrounded by a lot of hype. While AI promises to revolutionize industries, the truth is many projects fail to deliver real results. That's why it's so important to focus on initiatives that can actually make an impact. But how do you do that? How do you choose the right projects and how does AI fit into them? How do you measure success? To answer these questions and many more, I will interview John Sukup, founder of Expected X and an expert in driving AI powered success. In this episode, we'll explore how John navigates beyond the hype to create meaningful AI solutions that deliver results. We'll dive into his journey, the challenges he's faced, and what it takes to make AI work in the real world. If you want to understand how AI can be leveraged for real change, you don't want to miss this episode. John, thank you so much for being here.
All right, Mateo, thanks for having me. Glad to be here and always a subject that I'm very interested to talk about. So thanks for having me on.
John, can you start by telling us about your role today as the founder of Expected X and the type of work you are involved with in the tech industry?
Sure. So I actually started out in my career. It's almost been 20 years now, but the first 7 or 8 years or so I spent getting acclimated with the world of data in the consumer market research space. So trying to uncover, why people buy what they buy, what their intentions are, product features that they may be interested in across the whole spectrum of different industries. And at one point, around the end of my time in that field, I started to hear things about data science and machine learning, and see how some of the same insights we were trying to capture from consumers in surveys, we could potentially capture using statistical methods or probabilistic estimation, essentially what we think of nowadays as machine learning models. Unfortunately, the market research industry was not too keen on changing from surveys and focus groups at that time. So I decided to go off on my own and created Expected X, which started out actually as an answer to building market research solutions using machine learning techniques. And then over time, over the past almost 10 years now, I suppose, we've developed into an organization focused on solution design, consulting, and professional training. So you've probably seen that, data science was at one point kind of the big topic that everyone wanted to talk about. It evolved into everyone wanting to talk about machine learning, and now today everyone's talking about AI, which is basically synonymous with LLMs, large language models. So they're all interrelated. They're all kind of within that AI umbrella. But yeah, right now we provide three different services, like I mentioned there, and work with startups, small businesses, and mid-sized businesses that are just trying to test the waters and how they get started with AI-based solutions.
Very interesting. And I love how you talk about, how we went from everyone is talking about data is the new oil, and then that transition into talking about machine learning, and then that transition to talking about AI. But even when people are talking about AI and LLMs, they are still talking about machine learning and data, right? That never went away. That's very important, and it's very important that you highlight that as well. Um, John, your journey has in tech has taken you from the US to Southeast Asia. What initially drew you to that region, and how did that impact your career trajectory?
Sure, absolutely. So I've been kind of on the move for most of my life. I was born in the Midwest in the United States, in Indiana. If anyone that's listening is planning on a vacation anytime soon, I would not put Indiana on your short list of places to visit. No offense to any Hoosiers in Indiana, but not exactly the most exciting place. But I spent about 6 years in Chicago, Illinois, probably the best place to live in the Midwest, in my opinion. And then the previous 8.5 years living in Hawaii. So I've been progressively moving myself west until I guess eventually at some point I'll be coming back from the east
Right.
if I keep moving in the same direction. So, I would say that the reason that I moved to Malaysia right now, so I am currently located in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, the capital, was not so much based on looking for AI opportunities. A lot of it was just the desire to kind of live abroad and experience kind of what that's like as an expat. But the sooner or the closer I came to making the move, which was about 6 months ago, actually, almost exactly 6 months ago, as we had this conversation, um, there became a lot more interest and involvement from big tech companies. So Intel, Amazon, Google, Apple have all sent their top leadership, in some case their CEOs, to places in Southeast Asia for building data centers, for building new plants for manufacturing. A lot of this, I think, is driven by the kind of the economic trade war between the U.S. and China. So some of it is very beneficial, I think, for the region here. So there's several millions, if not, up to $1 billion pledged or already being invested into the region here to develop kind of the hardware aspect of what we need for AI. But along with that also comes the need for humans, right?
Right.
So we need
Right.
people within the region to work, to help manage these systems and to build their own companies based on using AI products from the companies that I mentioned previously. So I kind of saw it as an opportunity to say, hey, I'm in professional training, consulting, solution design, everything like that. So coming to a place in the world that is very interested and very excited for AI, but still doesn't have, as far as I can tell from my time being here, still doesn't have a lot of talent locally. So I saw that as, like I said, an opportunity to come in here and start working with individuals, businesses, and to kind of plant the seeds for the Southeast Asian region.
That's so interesting. And how do you see the reception from the locals? How are locals reacting? Do you see excitement in local professionals, in local companies that see the opportunity and want to get ready for it? What are you finding on the ground?
I would say from a general perspective, and again, remember, I've been here 6 months, so
Right.
it's
Right.
not take it with a grain of salt, I suppose, it's my opinion. But it's very similar, I think, to what you're seeing in other places in the world that are starting to look into AI. So some of the top leadership in Malaysia has, verbally said during various speeches or presentations that they, want to become a leader in artificial intelligence. Now, that could obviously mean a lot of different things in terms of upskilling their employees or, like building out the data centers that we mentioned earlier or attracting foreign investment. But I think from what I've seen, the number of people currently that work in AI or AI related fields, we'll say, so kind of encompassing, the machine learning, data science, everything that we've talked about previously, I would say it's still definitely not a lot of people. There are some trade organizations. There's a Google developers group. There's also a Malaysia artificial intelligence users group. that I frequent monthly. They have monthly meetings, actually really close to where I'm staying, so it's fairly easy to get there. So there's definitely interest. I don't think it's nearly as high as it is in other places in the world, probably the
Right.
US and China specifically. But I also see the similar sentiment of people starting to become a little bit frightened that AI is going to potentially make their job obsolete, or it could, make different tasks redundant, where they don't need a human to do it anymore. And actually, some of my colleagues that I've been working with here shared with me just the other day a grant program that is sponsored by an organization. I can't remember what the name is. I think it's called AVPN is the acronym. So we'll have to look that up after recording. But actually, the grant is designed for organizations that can prove that there is, some bad or scared feelings among their employees. So
Right.
basically, it's a grant is supposed to provide employees with training in Google designed courses on AI. So it's basically like a free upskilling
Right.
for local
Right.
employees. So I think you're seeing the same thing. It's not nearly as big as it is in the US, but it's moving in that direction, and I would imagine it's going to keep moving in that direction based on everything I've seen.
Now you've done a lot of work with AI, but what excites you the most about AI's potential in the industries you are involved in?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It's kind of hard to say, I suppose, in terms of what really excites me. I think right now where we are with AI is we're definitely in an top of the hype cycle, right?
Right. 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 Right.
Where everyone's trying to get involved, everyone's trying to make something happen. We've been down this path before, it definitely has all of the appearances of a bubble, be that a investment bubble, or be that the pace that the technology will grow at. And I think right now we're kind of starting to plateau a bit based off of just the availability of data, the concerns of data privacy, bias, model hallucinations. So I think in terms of, my personal excitement with AI is not necessarily where we're at right now, but where we could potentially be within the next, 5 to 10 years, maybe not even that. So I think we're kind of starting to hit a wall in terms of where we are right now with transformer models, basically, the basis of
Right.
large language models that we all use. So if anything, I think the excitement is not necessarily around the technology or the advancement of that technology, but I think I'm excited that other people maintain a level of excitement because anyone that's worked with AI before, and it's come in a lot of different forms over several decades. It's not a new thing, but what we call AI today is obviously different than what we called it back in 1950. Is that we've experienced these AI winters where the expectations exceed the capabilities,
Right.
and then you have this broken promises, people lose interest, investment goes away, and then we sink into the AI winter. So I think what excites me now is I don't see us uh, falling into that trap again, where AI just kind of goes away and we just talk about it in textbooks and reminisce on the good old days when LLMs
Right.
are all the rage. So I'm excited because I feel that the progress is going to continue to progress, and what we see today probably will be blown away by what comes next, or hopefully what comes next. And I don't mean actually blown away like human beings wiped off the planet because we invent some artificial general intelligence that says, humans are obsolete and, nothing like that. But so I think that that's mostly what excites me right now is not where we're at, which is already quite amazing, but where we could potentially be in a very short amount of time.
Got it. Um, how do you think companies can achieve substantial results with AI? Beyond the hype, beyond the bubble, beyond all of that, right? I mean, a lot of companies are being asked for results, right? Investors are saying, "Hey, I'm pouring a lot of money here. Where are are you monetizing here and there? How?" So, what's your experience, and when you're helping companies, what are some of those wins that they can achieve?
Sure, sure, sure. So, the same thing happened when machine learning started becoming all the rage, which, as you may know, is really just kind of a subfield of the greater AI field. Um, but when ML became popular, we kind of saw the same thing. We saw a lot of organizations throwing hundreds of thousands, millions, hundreds of millions of dollars. Actually, I work with some companies that literally, probably threw over $100 million over several years
Hmm.
into developing their AI capabilities, not necessarily because they had a goal in mind, but like you see from a lot of companies, it's this keeping up with the Joneses sort of thing where, well, my competitors are putting $10 million a month into AI, so I better do it too. I don't know exactly what I'm looking for or trying to achieve, but if my investors, every quarterly report, are not seeing that, hey, we have earmarked all this money for AI investment and research, then they're going to, invest in my competitors. Um, so, again, kind of with the hype cycle sort of thing. Um, but with machine learning, when machine learning came out, it's like, how do we build a model that can predict a future outcome based off of previous outcomes?
Right.
And that's, kind of the basis of ML. So all these companies would start building ML models and deploying them and making inferences and predictions, but they never really closed the loop, so to speak.
Hmm.
So they're like, oh, wait a minute. So I'm making these predictions, and maybe I'm kind of generically keeping tabs on how well those predictions are actually predicting reality. But there wasn't really like an automated way to do it. And that's when ML ops kind of became the next big thing over ML engineering. How do we monitor? How do we say, for every correct prediction my model makes about a customer's, potential purchase, or if I recommend a product and they purchase it, what is the incremental marginal value of that to my organization, and then take that value and multiply it towards however many customers you have. Actually, the name of my company, Expected X, is a reference to the statistical expected value,
Right.
which is one of the basis of how I work with companies is say, well, you can make predictions all day long, but if you walk into the CEO's office of your company and say, oh, I built this, cutting edge, state of the art predictive model,
Right.
and it is 92% accurate at predicting, customer churn rate. Well, the CEO is probably going to look at you and be like, oh, well, that sounds great, but 92%, what does that mean in terms of dollars or whatever your currency is,
Right.
wherever you happen to be in the world? What does that translate into money? 92% sounds great, but is 91% okay too, or 95% better? What's the actual monetary value?
Yeah.
So, in terms of how do we extend that to AI, I think that that's still kind of a work in progress. And that is one of the things that I work with clients on is, setting expectations, first of all. It's much easier to use ML ops to predict how well a model is working because you're really working in the world of numerical values, right? When you talk about AI and measuring the incremental value, the expected value, like I mentioned earlier, of a user interaction with an LLM, which is synonymous with what we call AI today, it's much more challenging to do because it's a non-deterministic. Every time, and I guess the same could be said with machine learning, but with a LLM, you don't necessarily know, how to measure that value. So typically what I do is first set expectations and say, this is still a very new field. Let's come up with some metrics that we can agree on for how, we're going to say this is, what we're going to use to measure how well our model is working and make sure that those are enacted and enabled, when we deploy, one of these solutions out in a production environment. So LLM ops, I think, is kind of what it's been called now. That's kind of the area that's still, I think, really growing and really a focus is how do we close the loop on LLMs? And a lot of it, is very subjective, where people still have to be a part of. I think that ChatGPT's response to my question was accurate, but maybe they could have used different language, or so. There's a lot more subjectivity, I think, involved in understanding how well a large language model works in a production environment compared to, say a traditional machine learning model.
Got it. So there's a lot of predictions, but if we don't close the loop, we don't monitor the results, and we don't action on those predictions, there's really no value, right? Sometimes we just have empty predictions and we are not doing anything with it. So how deep do you get into understanding your client's business and their goals to help them close the loop, right? Because you start asking questions. What are you trying to achieve? What's your business? What's your end goal? How do you make money, right? You're at the end of the day, you talked about money and you're following the money, right? And I love that because many times we talk about technology for the sake of technology, but technology should be accelerating or helping accelerate the business, right? And to do that, you have to be good at following the money. Is that very important to you? How far do you go when you're working with your clients?
Yeah, it's obviously very important from my perspective, and it should be, the highest importance from other practitioners' perspectives as well too. But where we are, I think, with AI right now is everyone's trying to get a piece of the pie. So you have lots of people that have no experience at all in AI or very little experience in AI. And I mean, let's be honest, large language models, they've been around, or at least the transformer architecture has been around since, I believe, 2015. But really, people didn't start talking about this current AI iteration until ChatGPT came out.
Right.
And I actually posted something on LinkedIn. I'm an avid LinkedIn user, and I think I just posted something last week about how as soon as ChatGPT came out and all these businesses were clamoring for we have to, use it, how, 75, 80, 90% of all the people on LinkedIn, updated their profile, and now they're all of a sudden they're an
Yeah.
AI
Yeah.
expert, right? So you have this huge cloud of like who's actually like, knows what they're doing, who doesn't know what they're doing. Anyway, so in terms of like extracting value, from these types of models from an organization, it's still very challenging. But like, how deep do we go? Well, when you think about LLMs, there's a lot more at stake for organizations, and a lot of it again is intangible or is very hard to pin down on a monetary value. Hallucinations, for example, are a big pain point in LLMs, and it still hasn't been determined how to automatically, make sure that those don't happen. That's why we still have human in the
Yeah.
loop.
Yeah.
But what's the cost if I have a chat bot on my client's website and it sends a user to a completely erroneous, section of the website to answer their customer support question. There's no money involved. I mean, it's the client isn't or the customer isn't paying to use that, but there's definitely some negative sentiment from the customer using that could potentially impact their relationship with the company moving forward if they want to use products, or if they're a future purchaser, or if they move on to someone else. So, I'm probably going off on a tangent here from the original
No, that's
the
okay.
original question. But again, it's about setting those expectations, I think, from the get-go, when building out these systems, is that it's still a growing technology.
Right.
It's not perfect. It's not a panacea. Um, and I think that that's where, a lot of the dissonance is right now between the people that are out there just to make a quick buck. And then when, something else comes along, they'll just jump off to that and change their LinkedIn
Yeah.
profile and,
Yeah.
and then they'll become an expert in, whatever's next. So
Yeah.
hopefully that
AR,
answered the
crypto.
question. I'm not sure.
No, it did.
AR, crypto. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
The whole
Okay, good, good, good.
um so is that awareness part of the prerequisites that a company needs to be ready to leverage AI and get results, like understanding that it's not a panacea, understanding that it's not a magic trick that will just solve everything? When you're working with companies, um they probably need to have data, right? That they can use and leverage. What some of the prerequisites for them to be, to be able to leverage AI?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you hit it right there. Data, data is the lifeblood, of all of these systems. Now, granted, some of the foundational LLMs that exist right now, don't necessarily require an organization's own data. But when you see like retrieval augmented generation systems, RAG systems, where companies are taking their knowledge base and using it as a repository or a source for LLMs to tap into when making responses, then obviously, that data becomes very important. So having some data, clean data, being able to, have a data governance system in place, or data management, master data management. It all starts with data in the first place. So I think that that's definitely number one. Again, I think number two, any organization can benefit from AI or ML or anything that's a data oriented process, even for something like RPA, robotic process automation. Um, so I think that you don't need to be a huge organization. But I think again, when I work with clients, again, it's taking baby steps, right?
Right.
It's doing the opposite of the company that will remain nameless, that invested hundreds of millions of dollars and then put all this headcount. And actually, interestingly enough, I was laid off from that company,
Right.
as were several hundred other people that were brought in at the same time. So you can see that this has probably happened many other places.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so the data, very important. Not taking a huge leap into AI, so smaller investment. Having the right resources in terms of people, and those can be built up. You don't have to go out and hire a bunch of AI experts. You can hire one or two and train the rest of your engineering staff to achieve the goals that they need in order to make those systems actually effective and in production. So I think that that's the two big things. And again, it's like, let's make sure that we're achieving results, which I think comes back to what we talked about earlier. But That's still one of the harder things to determine. Anyone that's worked in the AI field, and again, using AI and large language models interchangeably, knows that there are countless benchmark data sets out there. So essentially, like the test data set you would have when building a machine learning model. How well does my model work on unseen data that it was not trained on? So
Right.
there's all these different LLM, all these different benchmark sets for, code generation, text generation, specific domain, generation. And I think that, those are important as well in order for, managing or at least understanding how well that performance or what performance you're achieving when you implement these systems. But I think again, yeah, data, yeah, if your company has data, that is the key. And a lot of companies have data, and most of it is not clean. And either they know it and they don't do anything about it, or they know they should do something about it, but it would take too long and cost too much, and they want to get right into the action and start building things, and then it's a house of cards. So
Got it.
I think I answered a question there that you didn't ask, but maybe you were going to ask in the
That's no,
future.
that's kind of the idea, right? I mean, make it conversational and keep going as new things come to mind. So I appreciate that. So on that same topic, let's talk about professionals that might be hearing us and thinking, hey, I wanna go further into AI, further into the tech industry. Um, what do you think are some of the skills that are needed to thrive today in technology and AI? And tell that with what's your advice for professionals trying to get into all of this space?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I remember when I first started learning about machine learning. I didn't go to school for machine learning. I mean, machine learning wasn't even a thing that people talked about when I was in school, and there definitely wasn't any degree program for it. So I was all and have continued to be basically self-taught in the field. So, anyone that's trying to get into the field, first of all, I would say you're lucky that we live in the age of the internet,
Right.
because there are a litany of sources and resources online for learning anything that you really want to know about the field, anything very general, all the way down to very, very specific. So, if anything, I would say right now, the best skill is not necessarily having the skill of learning something specific in AI. I would say it's the skill of learning in itself. So having that ability. And I say that because again, referring when I started to learn about machine learning, there was new developments, and I actually started working in my programming background was in R,
Right.
which was, the language of data science. And I really didn't have any programming experience. And then I started in R, and R was all the rage, and Python, people talked about Python, but it was still kind of in the shadows. And then at some point, all of a sudden Python just completely surpassed and blew way beyond R, and most people that are just getting in the field probably don't know anything, even know that R existed. But anyway,
Right.
things in machine learning kind of gradually grew and built up. But it was easy to keep track of changes. With everything that's happening in large language models and AI today, the level of information and changes and new tools and new models it's exponential. It's
Right.
exponentially the growth compared to when ML was the thing, has gone through the roof. And I read about it every day. Every single day I'm reading some article about a new model development or a new LLM or something like that. Um, so I think, the skill again for people that are trying to get into it is is learning how to learn, learning how to, kind of stay focused on a particular area, not always jumping for kind of like the next shiny new object that's coming along, because I'm definitely guilty of doing that myself. A lot of the skills that you learn in machine learning are definitely applicable for large language models, because again, a transformer is really just a artificial neural network,
Right.
a little bit more elaborate than maybe one that you might have built in PyTorch or TensorFlow 5 years ago. But nevertheless, that's what it is. So I think you still want to have a good idea of the mathematical underpinnings. You want to know how, data propagates through that type of model, and how text is generated. But again, I think another, probably the final skill, and obviously it's not a complete list of everything I'm giving you, is the learning the hands-on, the application part, and learning the limitations of AI as it exists today. So there's definitely the technical side that I think is very important, that a lot of times gets abstracted away by all the different tools that come out. You see a lot of low code, no code tools that are out today for creating AI systems.
Right.
Some are better than others, I suppose. But learning how to stay focused, learning how to learn, and having a grasp on the technical underpinnings, the mathematical and statistical underpinnings
Hmm.
that exist across any type of model, be it a machine learning model or an LLM.
You mentioned something very important, and I think it's enough for another episode in itself. But the sources and resources are so abundant that you can literally like learn anything that you wish to learn, right? Do
Right.
you have any special tricks to accelerate learning? How do you, there's so much to keep up with, right? How do you do it? Do you read and then you do a summary? Do you listen more to podcasts and audiobooks or whatever? Do you watch more videos? Do you try to learn and then apply something? What are John's tricks for learning faster?
Sure, sure. So I've definitely become a big fan of YouTube videos. Let's be honest, you probably don't even have to go to college anymore for anything. You could probably just, take your kid and send them to YouTube University, and they'll probably get just as good of an education there for free in 6 months to a year than they would if you're spending who knows how much
Yeah.
on sending them off to university, right? So YouTube and the internet, obviously, like I said, great resources. Um, one of the kind of the ironic things, I guess, is that using LLMs themselves to teach you about AI and LLMs, which is very interesting. I think one of the best tools are, code generation tools, right? So, you can sit around all day and talk about applications for AI and building chat bots, and know the theoretical ways that those things are done, and, even memorize step by step by step. But, actually doing it is a different story. And I think that that's where, those the snake oil salesman on LinkedIn
Yeah.
that all
Yeah.
became AI experts. I think that that might be, that's the wall where they hit is, well, I know how to theoretically do everything with AI, but when it comes to actually implementing it in a production level environment, and don't get me wrong, it's not easy to do. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I'm the world's like, foremost knowledgeable individual on everything in AI and AI deployment. But the code generation LLMs are very intriguing right now because a lot of them are able to generate entire LLM-based systems simply from a prompt. But one of the nice things about that is that you can actually, inquire with the LLM. So some LLMs, what they call like LLM engineers, right? You write a prompt and it will create an entire code base on your computer just from a simple prompt. Like I want to build an app that uses an LLM to do so and so, go. And they'll create all the files in whatever language for your back end, probably Python, for your front end, probably React or something in JavaScript, and will create everything for you. But then you can inquire in, okay, well, now that you wrote all this code, LLM, what does this line mean? How does this work? How does this work?
Right.
So you can actually, use the LLM to create something that very likely you could use in a production environment, but you can also use the LLM to inquire, why did you write, like, what does this code mean? So it's almost like having a tutor. So you can build something that you may be able to monetize, but you can also use it to learn how to do what the LLM is doing. And I mean, if anything, also, if you're already pretty well versed in coding, you could use it to find maybe where your LLM is hallucinating bad code
Yeah.
that doesn't work and start debugging. So you can even learn how to become like a better software developer using LLMs. So, I like watching videos. I read tons of articles. Medium is a great resource. You do have to have a subscription, I think, to get as many articles as you want. I do subscribe to a lot of different newsletters that send AI-based news. And, we live in a world where your internet activity is being tracked by something. So as soon as you go online and look for the news, it knows me already. It's like, oh, well, give John everything on AI because that's what he's gonna read. And sure enough, they got it right. So I think that those are good resources, definitely. And using LLMs themselves to learn about LLMs, learn about code, while generating code and learning how to become a better software developer, I think is great. If this was 50 years ago, we'd be in the library scrolling through the card catalog and using the Dewey Decimal System to find, some and some people that are listening probably don't even know what the Dewey Decimal System is. So maybe I'm really dating myself by making that reference, but yeah, support your local library.
So it's no, it's amazing. I hear you speak, and my mind is I'm thinking about how it's like a paradox in this world where so many things have become so easy and we are tempted to become lazy many times. We need to be more curious and have more analytical thinking than ever because we're being fed a lot of stuff. But if we are not curious and we are not asking and questioning and thinking critically about what we are getting, then we just might get it wrong, right? Or we are not getting the real benefit from it, right? You were saying, hey, you can ask, you can ask the system to do a lot of stuff for you, but then just probe it and ask questions here and there, and but that requires curiosity, that requires ambition, that requires passion, that requires so many things that are into it, and I love it, and I can see your passion as well as you're talking about it. You have those things in you and you're looking at it from a passionate, curious point of view, which I love. um
Right. Yeah. And one other thing I throw in there for the learning aspect, which I think I think you almost said it just now, but maybe not, was skepticism. I think you should have some skepticism. I think is a very valuable learning skill, especially in LLMs. Again, because we come back to talking about hallucinations. Now, a lot of people will, and I'm sure you've seen it. Some of the listeners have probably seen it or heard about it at least. People having ChatGPT write their college term paper, and they
yeah.
just write a prompt. ChatGPT creates something and they just copy and paste it, turn it in, don't even read it, don't look at anything. And then, the professor who they might actually be using ChatGPT to grade those
Right.
papers too. You know who you are if you're listening. But you know, people have obviously, they've been caught because the model's hallucinating and they don't proofread because they're kind of, well, lazy, I guess, for lack of a better term, and like, oh, well,
Yeah.
ChatGPT will do everything for me. So I think too, in terms of the learning aspect, the skepticism, right, is don't believe everything that comes out of a LLM right away, right? And I still find myself fact checking LLMs. And a lot of LLMs like Perplexity AI, it does come back with citing sources,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I think even like Google Gemini that they use with Google results will come back and cite sources as well. But even then, I was just using an LLM yesterday to help me write a LinkedIn post. And I gave it a PDF, or actually, I gave it a URL to a PDF on the archive.org white paper preprint. So arxiv.org. I think it's pronounced archive. And it was about, I can't even remember what it was about right now off the top of my head, but I gave it this URL and I had used this LLM many times before and used the same prompt, gave it said I'm trying to,
Yeah.
write like an article here on LLM, on LinkedIn. And I gave it that link and pressed the enter button and it came back. And what that LLM returned, if I hadn't looked at it, it came back with a completely different response.
Right.
Like it wasn't even about the URL and the PDF. It was about generative adversarial networks, a type of neural network, neural network architecture. And the paper that I gave it was about something entirely different. And, if I hadn't looked at it closely,
You will
I would
just
have been like, all right, well, here we go, off there. And I mean, it was like the entire thing was a complete and total hallucination. I don't even know where the information came from. I tried to find where it was pulling it from, but it definitely wasn't pulling it from the source that I came from. So yes, don't be lazy. LLMs will get you in trouble if you're not still doing your due diligence.
very good. One final random question to you, John. When you're not working on AI projects or building your business, what do you do to unwind on your free time?
Well, I when I was still living in Hawaii, I used to play a lot of tennis.
Nice.
I actually started playing tennis when I was very young, and then when I got to college, I stopped because I wasn't good enough to play on the team. And I kind of, I always liked tennis, but I couldn't find anyone to play. None of my friends played. And I basically took like a 22-year break from
Wow.
playing tennis until I ended up finally living on Oahu in Hawaii. I finally found people that played tennis and I finally got back into it. And I probably ended up playing, at a much higher level than I played as a child. So tennis was always a thing. Hiking, being outdoors, it's pretty hard not to be outdoors all the time in Hawaii,
Right.
unless it's raining, but even then. So those are the two things that I did back there. Now that I live in Malaysia, and for any of you, that have been to Southeast Asia, you probably know that it's extremely hot, extremely humid. I do not do well in humidity. I can handle the heat, but humidity is a nightmare. So when I came here, I decided, playing tennis outside in the sun during the day would probably kill me. And it wasn't as popular of a sport as it maybe is in other parts of the world. But now I play badminton,
Oh,
which is
wow.
very popular in this part of the world. And I just kind of picked it up. Of course, my tennis, it's a much different game than tennis,
Eh,
even though it plays with brackets and a net. Everyone that I played with here says, oh, you must play tennis because you swing with your arm instead of with your wrist.
Right.
So I'm still figuring that out. And I've actually started. to try out paddle tennis,
Yeah.
which I had never really heard of before. I've heard of pickleball, and I'm not a big fan of that. It's a loud
Yeah.
and obnoxious sport. No offense to any pickleball players, but paddle tennis, which is a little bit more like tennis. And actually, I think paddle tennis was invented in South America, I want to
It's
say, or maybe
huge.
Mexico, or
I don't know if
yeah,
it was
yeah.
invented here, but it's huge. It's huge. Like in Uruguay right now, it's huge. It used to be huge in the 90s, then it stopped, and then it came back. All of my friends are
Okay.
playing paddle right now. Like everyone is playing.
Really, really. All right. Well, I almost bought a paddle today. I've been playing with a rental, so I might take the plunge. All my tennis friends, I got to keep it a secret because they'll think I'll never play tennis again. I'll be back. I'll play tennis again someday. Just I was expecting Malaysia to have more indoor tennis courts, and as far as I can tell, there are zero indoor tennis courts in Malaysia. So yeah.
Good stuff. John, this has been a great conversation. I appreciate you being here, and I hope that we can do this sometime again in the future.
Sure, sure. And I'm going to put in a last second shameless plug, if you don't mind. You can
Go.
always edit this out if you don't like Mateo. But please do check out a ebook that myself and my colleague Martin Miller, who is also a AI professional, called AI in a Weekend, an Executive's Guide. It's a very quick read. I don't even know if it's 100 pages. It's available as an ebook on Amazon.com, Barnes and Noble. I'm not sure if either of those websites are available in Uruguay or South America in general, but check it out. Like I said, it's a quick read, quick overview, and Martin Miller and myself are actually looking at making a second edition for 2025 because everything that we wrote in that book will probably end up, being replaced by the latest and greatest, in not that long. So it's good for the book writing business. If you want to have like a 12th edition, 13th edition, you can just, keep rattling them off. But check it out and greatly appreciated.
Very good. AI in a Weekend, an executive's guide. You heard it. Now go look for it. John, thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, Mateo. It's been great.